A, B, C. A, always, B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. AIDA, attention, interest, decision, action. Attention, do I have your attention? Interest, are you interested? I know you are, because it's or walk. You close or you hit the bricks. Decision, have you made your decision for Christ? And action.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Filmmakers Focus. I'm Dot Kennedy. This week's special guest is Zephan Blaxberg. Zephan is a videographer who is going to be teaching us tips on how to gain and maintain clients. So if you have a business of any kind, this episode is definitely for you. Doesn't matter what kind of business it is, because clients are clients and we need them to survive. So, quick update on myself. I'm in the process of moving still. I know this feels like a never-ending saga. Sure does for me. But you know what? I got another month in the same place I've been the last 4 years, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of like, I'm a little confused right now on what I'm going to be doing. So I guess you get to come for the ride with that. I really don't know right now at this point, but you know what? It's all good. I'm not freaking out about it. Thank God I had I've had the rent, and I'll have the rent, and that's all fine. So, there is that peace of mind that comes with having a place to call home, and I kind of don't feel that right now, but that's just because I'm in the middle, and it's okay. You know what? If I end up staying here another year, that's great. I just want to get something finalized. So the big thing for me is that I don't want this being a never-ending process that keeps me away from taking on bigger projects. I have some bigger projects that I'm ready to dive into, and I haven't been able to because I don't know if I'm going to be right here, and all the time that it takes trying to find a place and all that fun stuff, so that has taken a little bit of time away from that, from being able to work on those projects. But no excuses, right? We just got to do what we got to do. I did get cast in a commercial last week, and I'm super excited about that. That'll be fun. I love acting, and I'm super excited about this. I'm going to share a little bit more about that, maybe in a separate episode in a few weeks or so. And then I did a video this morning, and, things are going good. I'm really blessed, and just excited about where things are going. Just a heads up about the next 2 episodes. I'm not positive I'm going to be able to do a intro on those because I'm out of town the next 2 weeks. So if I can't, you know what, we'll make do. I'm sure you'll live without hearing about me spew about whatever. You know what? I appreciate the feedback that I get. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback of people hearing that they like to hear these little updates, and I really appreciate that. So if you don't mind sharing this episode, that would be awesome. That's the biggest help you can do for me. Share this episode with people who could be benefited from this. This is one of those episodes that's not just for filmmakers. It's for anybody that works with people. So please share this. And if you'd like, you can follow us at Filmmakers Focus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I haven't been keeping the Instagram up as much, mainly because there's no way to link anything. And I don't know if that's beneficial or not, but let me know if that's something that you would utilize, if you find that intriguing or not. All right, well, with that said, we will jump into our conversation with Zephan Blaxberg.
And now our feature presentation.
Welcome to the show, Zephan.
Hey, thanks for being here, or thanks for letting me be here. This is different for me because I'm a podcaster too, so I'm so used to having people on my show.
Well, I'm glad I'm here too. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in video production?
Yeah, so my name is Zephan Blaxberg. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I always grew up doing video work. This was something that I went to a program in high school for to really develop not only basic editing but also basic shooting skills, and then later down the road went to college for. So I have a degree in digital video and cinema studies, And when I got out of school right away, pretty much landed a job at a marketing company running all their video stuff, flying all over the country, filming conferences and events, which we would then go and turn into informational products that we would sell online. So did a lot of video there, and then kind of took a break for a bit. Lost my job at that company because it was sold, and they decided not to take any of the employees with them into the new company. And so, kind of was stuck figuring out what to do next, and took up a job working at the Apple store for a little over a year, about a year and a half, until I realized it was time to just take the leap and start my own business, and walked in the next day and quit. And here I am. A little over almost 3.5 years later, running my own business. It's been extremely successful and a really wild ride.
Wow. So what was it like when you went from, I'm going to quit my job? Because I remember having that feeling myself too. I remember exactly where I was when I realized I'm going out on my own. For me, it was a feeling of both excitement and nervousness. But how did you process that whole thing of, okay, I'm leaving the automatic paycheck to creating my paycheck?
Yeah, well, for me, it was kind of an easy decision, only because when you work at the Apple store, you're kind of in one of two positions. Either you're in sales, where you see people that are like, yes, I want a new iPhone, I want to buy this, I love being here. Or you're like where I was, and you're basically in the customer service role of, this is broken, it's all your fault, it's the end of the world, And so I was in that position, and I feel like you can only deal with that so many times until you're just like, this is really not working for me. I can only play therapist for so long. This isn't really what I signed up for. So for me, the biggie was one day this client comes in, probably one of the typical drop the phone in the toilet or whatever it was. But, she caused a huge scene because we go off at an appointment system. She had to get dragged out of the store ultimately by security. Wow. Because busy store, 200 people probably buying stuff and getting stuff fixed, and just was way too loud and obnoxious. But, as she's kind of standing there yelling at me, I look out of the corner of my eye and I see one of my freelance clients. I've been doing a little bit of video on the side, just here and there, and he's kind of in the corner just looking at the iPads, and he looks up and shoots me a look of like, what is going on? And ultimately invited me out to dinner and gave me a really nice talk. He's a very successful real estate investor, and was like, why are you here? Like, why aren't you running your own business? You worked for this old company that taught people how to run successful businesses. You've got resources like me who could be your mentor. Like, what's stopping you? And, really it was a fear. It was fear of, not getting clients. It was fear of quitting and not having that steady paycheck. It was the fear of having a Jewish mother freak out on you and kick you out of the house because you're still living at home. So fear was kind of the big driver there at first. And it wasn't until he did something that I love to share with people, because he did something that changed the way I view creating a successful business. And it was very simple. He took out a bar napkin and he took out a pen and said, okay, how much do you make right now? And for me at the time, it was, $30,000 a year, $38,000 a year, whatever it was. It was a pretty small number. And he starts to draw this little step ladder of 12 steps and puts 0 at the bottom and puts 30,000 at the top. And he said, okay, pull out your calculator and type in 30,000 and divide that by 12. And what you get is roughly $2,500 per month that you have to, replace of your income. And, that made it seem a little more feasible. But for me, I'm like, I still don't even know how I'm going to make $2,500 a month, let alone $1 a month. And he said, okay, let's break down the math even further. Let's just assume you work 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, just like everybody else, and so essentially you've got 52 weeks in the year. Let's assume 1 week you have for sick days and 1 week you have for vacation. You're left with, 50 weeks left in the year, and you're working 5 days a week. That's 250 days, right? So if you're trying to replace that same $30,000 and you divide it by 250 days that you have to replace it in, you actually get 120. And so, working 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, when you're trying to replace $30,000, you're no longer trying to make $250 a month, or I'm sorry, $2,500 a month. but now $120 a day, 5 days a week. And that's when it just kind of clicked for me. He made it so simple and so easy. And it's like, if I had to go mow a lawn, if I have to, do housework, whatever it is to make $120 a day, it's totally doable. And this was like before we even had Uber. So, I mean, if you want to be an Uber driver, go become an Uber driver, make $120 a day. So it's very possible. And it wasn't until he explained that to me where I saw it possible for myself.
That's awesome. So what was the first steps that you took in creating a clientele?
So, a big thing for me was, let's start off with, what do we have so far, right? Like, while I did have a clean slate, there were still a couple of people that I was connected with from my old business and just like people that I knew in the area. So I always say to start off with who you know first, whether it's friends, family, or any acquaintances. Those are the people that you want to reach out to with a simple letter and say, look, here's the deal. I quit my job. I started a company. I'm doing this full time now. Whether or not you could use my services or anyone else that could use my services, I just want to let you know that I'm doing this because, a big part of any business is just awareness, people knowing that you actually exist. 5-10 years ago, it was if you have a website, your business exists. And if you don't have a website, your business didn't really exist. And now it's kind of at a point where it's not enough to just have a website and just be out there, because back then it was very easy to have a website and be like the only person that people would find when they search for a videographer in, Washington, D.C. But now it's really going back to its roots of word of mouth and getting the word out that you exist, that you do something, you provide a service that solves, a potential list of problems for other business owners, or realtors if you're in real estate video, and really just getting that word out there. So the first thing I always say is start out with a simple letter to anyone you know, just to get the word out. And that's pretty helpful from the start, but obviously that's not going to build the full foundation of, having continuing recurring clients. But another big start to it too is really learning networking. And I know that people on any business are going to say network, and they don't really tell you how or what to do. My biggest recommendation is meetup.com. There are meetups everywhere for any topic you could possibly think of, and really just getting out into the community and finding out who the big, hard hitters are. I see people now that just show up at every event, and now that they kind of know my name and know who I am and know me as the video guy, it's become so much easier that, if I run into them at an event, they'll remember me. I'll be in the back of their minds because they know they see me all the time. Yeah. And then, if someone comes to them and says, oh, I need a video, they'll be like, oh yeah, I see this guy every month at the same meeting or event or whatever. Let me go find his name for you and hook you guys up. And so that's been a big part too. It kind of goes back to that awareness, but really networking, getting out there, use meetup.com and just fill your calendar with events and start going to them and really just get in the faces of other people so that, they remember your name, they remember your face, and they know what you do.
That's a great tip, that's something that I honestly haven't even considered. So I really appreciate you throwing that out there. And I also like the idea of the letter, because that's something that you can actually do before you leave the 9 to 5. If I was going to restart and, do this whole thing again, I would have built up more of a clientele before I left the job. And that's always my advice to people, is try to start before you quit. But I love that idea of just sending out letters, giving people the heads up, hey, this is what I'm doing now. You might not see it on Facebook or anything right now, but this is where I'm going, and, just get the word out.
Exactly, because, someone might pop up a year later and be like, hey, I remembered you told me you were doing this thing, and either, I finally have a need for it, or someone just came up to me and I remembered you do it. You never know when it'll pay off, but it's just worth doing because it really doesn't take much time at all.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think people realize. People just, they got their own lives going on, and they don't recognize what we're doing as much as we think they're thinking about us. So I remember when I launched my Facebook page for the video production stuff, and I couldn't believe how many of my friends didn't know what I was doing. And that's my fault for not being more vocal about it. But that was also proof, hey, people don't know, and it's up to me to make it happen.
Yeah. And look, I still have friends that have no idea what I do sometimes. And so, I mean, that really just goes to show is that you should be someone who's out there and getting in their faces and really getting the word out that this is what you do so that there never really is that question of, anyone looking for a videographer or even just someone to do photos or whatever, and not thinking to contact you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. So has there been any huge shocks for you as you've made this transition into owning your own business? You're in it a few years now. What has been like the most surprising thing to you that you've seen along the way?
I think probably the most surprising thing was when I invested in a business coach and a business mentor. This was something that I did pretty close to right after I started full time. I think I quit Apple in like May, and by end of August, I had hired a coach. I think people don't put as much value in investing in their own education, and they'd be really surprised how much that can pay off. So for me, that meant going to a conference one weekend about building your business and meeting the person running the conference. And she put an offer on the table for everyone in attendance for an $11,000 coaching program that would go for 12 months' time. And at the time, it was kind of like, well, first of all, I don't have $11,000. But there was this part of me in the back of my head that said, you know what? I feel like this is really the right thing to do because when I put this $11,000 down, not only is it going to force me to hold myself accountable and really, put in the work it takes to get this business running, but I'm also going to meet people, that are working with this coach that could become potential clients. I'm going to get referred to all sorts of companies and organizations. And so it really could be the best start for me. And the funny thing is, about 3 months later, I had my first $10,000 month and paid off basically the entire program. So,
cool.
I think people would be really surprised how much their business can grow immensely just through investing in your own education, in someone who can really sit there and help you rework your business. And I don't mean, go to YouTube and learn how to use this brand new camera, this new editing software. I mean, like these are some things that you really just can't learn on YouTube, is getting that personalized one-on-one attention to really figure out what else needs to happen in your business. So I would say the biggest surprise is, the big thing that would shock you is how much you can really grow your business in such a short period of time from having someone like that, having a mentor, having someone who can show you what you really need to know.
Well, you've got some pretty big clients you were sharing with me. How have you gone about creating those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that goes back to the networking, right? And meeting the right people. But one of the biggest things that I did originally was I created this Facebook group. Right now, anyone can find it. It's actually totally free for anyone to jump in. It's called Videographers Connect. And if you're looking for it, it's just facebook.com/groups/videographers connection. But basically, I started a group of my peers, and we started doing monthly meetups so that I can meet other videographers in the area. I could connect with people in case, we're buying and selling equipment. And you never know when videographers need an extra person out on a shoot, whether it's to run another camera, to run audio, you never know what it is. And so this was one of the biggest things I did that ultimately placed me in front of, a pretty big crowd. We started with about 4 or 5 people in this Facebook group, had them invite their friends and their connections. We were doing monthly meetups for a little while, and we're now up to almost 350 members. And we've since opened it to outside of just Maryland and DC area, so it's open to the whole country. And, I don't get anything out of doing this really, but by placing myself at the forefront of that and making myself out to be, the expert connector of videographers has really opened me up to being able to go out on shoots with people, to meet new companies and organizations, and to ultimately start bringing on much bigger name clients. So I think the biggest value you can have is connecting with other videographers in your industry. We make this big mistake of thinking it's a competition, and that, if some person lands a gig, it's taking money away from us. And that's really the wrong way to look at it. It should be this great group of people that's all, trying to achieve the same goal.
Sure. I love that. Yeah. Because, it's the analogy of the pie. We're all creating our own pie. and we're not fighting for slices, you know.
Exactly. I mean, there's always work out there to be found, you know. It's a big thing that I teach to people is that we don't get clients or land clients. We actually create clients, you know, through connecting with them and through building up relationships. And so I think when you start to look at it that way, you don't think that, you know, this is some finite group of potential, you know, people to pay you. I think it really is. You could create a client out of anybody as long as you know how to really find their need, get your message straight as far as what you can provide to them in solving that need. And it really can go far.
Well, share with us a little bit about that. Like, you're in touch with someone who has not made any intentions of making a video. How do you go about working through that and helping them discover the need, and how something that you can create for them through motion picture could help solve their problem?
Yeah, so what I typically do, and this goes back to something that Ashley Zahabian said. She's spoken on stage with people like Gary Vaynerchuk and a lot of really, really awesome big speakers. But she says that you have to serve before you deserve. And so this is a big thing that I was kind of already doing without knowing it. But I continue to do it until present day, is when you show up to a coffee meeting, a networking event, whatever it is where you're meeting another business owner, you know, in the case of a videographer that does business videos, you know, you have to figure out how to help them first without any expectation of something in return. And, you know, some people think that it's counterintuitive, but you'd be really surprised how much of an impression that leaves on other people when you're willing to sit down with them and spend the time to help them out. So, you know, I have tons of great relationships with people that I've met over the past few years. I've done things for them, and some of them haven't done things back for me, right? But like, the whole point is that many others have done things for me. You know, many others have referred me out. Many others have kept me in the back of their minds. So, you know, a big thing is always to make sure that you provide something to them up front. So even if I'm sitting down, you know, let's say I'm sitting down with you and we met at some networking event and we're just having coffee, like, my big goal in that interaction is to find out where you're having trouble, where you need help, what you're trying to do with your business, asking about your goals and aspirations. And I kind of picture it like I'm taking someone on a date. Like, I mean, I have a girlfriend, I'm taken, but I go back to that whole interview process of like, what did you ask on your first date? You know, what did you want to find out about these people? You want to know what makes them tick and what they're interested in and what they're doing with their lives. And so, you know, for me, I really start out to figure out what's going on with them. And I found people where they've had certain issues that are totally unrelated to video, but I've been able to say, oh, you know, I noticed you were talking about your shoulder injury. Like, I have this really good massage therapist. I'd love to introduce you to them. Even if it's of no benefit to you, it's kind of like karma. You know, it really does come back around, and you shouldn't look at it as a tit for tat kind of thing of like, I give you something, now you owe me something. If you really go out there and try to help as many other people as possible be successful, and, you know, take away their pain, you'll realize it starts to pay off tenfold.
You know, you can't lose. You can't lose when you're using that mentality of just helping others. So you were at the top of the show, you mentioned that you host your own podcast. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so after about, about 2.5 years into the business, you know, I really got to this point of being very burned out. I hadn't quite learned at the time how to time manage as well. And, you know, I had made a couple mistakes within personal relationships because I was just so focused on building the business. And so I got to a space of really needing to rediscover myself and find out who I am and where I want to go. And for me, that meant actually teaching myself travel hacking. So using a couple different podcasts, learning on blogs like Reddit online, how to rack up a bunch of credit card rewards points so that I could travel around the world. And I racked up, I don't know the exact number, but it was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 300 to 400,000 sky miles just to start. There's been tons since then, but I used that to take a 2-month hiatus and just travel all around the U.S. I saw somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 to 40 of the 50 U.S. states between like that first 2-month long trip and over the course of the next year, just to figure out, you know, who am I as a person when I take away all the creature comforts of, you know, having my own car, having my own bed, knowing where I'm going to eat dinner the next night. And after that 2-month trip, it led me to start a podcast because I got home on New Year's Day of 2015. And the second I got back to social media and just kind of checked in with the rest of the world, the first article that comes up was called 2015 to be a year of purpose for many people. And it just clicked so well in my mind. I was like, this is exactly what I've been doing. Is I was sitting on this drive home on New Year's Day thinking, what am I going to do with myself this year? What goals do I want to set? I don't want to be that guy that says I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And, 2 weeks into the year, I'm sitting on the couch watching Netflix because they released a new House of Cards season. I don't want to be that guy. And how do I go about not being that person? So the podcast started out of this curiosity for, what are really successful people all over the world doing who have created this life on their own terms and are living it the way that they want to? Like, what are these guys doing? How do I take lessons from them and, not only share it with everybody who's interested in this, because I felt that, there were a lot of my friends and people in their late 20s who were like, I have no clue what's going on in the world. I really wanted to share this with them. And so the Year of Purpose podcast was created to interview motivational and inspirational people all around the world that have created life on their own terms through, building a business, starting a family, through traveling the world. They've just done so many amazing things. And so it was partially out of my own curiosity, and then partially, as that serve to deserve thing, giving back to everybody else by sharing the wealth. And it's been really cool. I've interviewed probably around 130, 140 people in the last 2 years. And it's just led to, running into people all around the country and across, the other side of the world that have either, heard of my podcast or know a lot of the same people that I know through the podcasting community. And it's just been extremely rewarding as like a side passion project on top of my business. You have to have those things that keep you moving along outside of the business. If you're just working all the time, you will run into that burnout and a lot of those issues in your relationships with friends, family, and loved ones that really are going to hurt you.
Yeah, I love that. So as you've been talking to this 130 people that are living life on their terms, what's one big takeaway that you take from that might be like a common denominator that you're seeing with these people?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing was definitely many of them, found the right mentors and surrounded themselves with the people that were doing the very thing that they were trying to accomplish. And I mean, this is kind of like one of those things you hear everywhere is, look at the 5 people you surround yourself with, you are the sum of those people. But to go a step further, I think that another big thing that these people did was they really sat down with themselves and said, who is it that I want to be and where do I want to go? And got very real about it. They looked at their current situation and said, okay, here's where I am right now, and here's where I'd really like to go. And even if they don't know, physically what state they want to be in, what country they want to be in, they can still write down that they really value travel and they really value the experiences that they gain from experiencing new cultures. And that's really just the best start, is getting very real, very open and honest with yourself about where you are and where you want to be, and really just getting it down onto paper so that you can see it. So many people kind of stay in their heads and say, I have all these goals and these visions and these dreams. And it's like, if you haven't really written it down or put it somewhere where you can see it on the day-to-day basis, I think the commonality between everybody is they're very clear, and they're written out right in front of you all the time when it comes to your goals and who you really want to become.
Something else I really appreciate is with your travel, you took a couple months and traveled to the U.S. like you were sharing there. You wouldn't have been able to do that had you had a 9-to-5. And so having the courage to take the leap and start your own business actually created that opportunity.
Oh, it certainly did. And I mean, look, here I am 2 years after that trip. And I just spent, somewhere around 2 months out of the country this summer. And, I was booking video gigs by sending emails from my iPad in a hotel in Paris. Like if you haven't built a business that allows you to do that, A, you should aspire to, because I think it's awesome. But B, I think that it's really important to know that you value traveling and having that freedom and flexibility. And when you can set that goal for yourself, it's so much easier, much like that whole $0 to $30,000 where I was breaking it down into smaller steps of, $120 5 days a week. Really break it down. If you want to build a business where you only have to work 6 months out of the year, then put that 6 months out of the year that you're working at the top and build 12 steps in between and figure out what has to happen to get you there from ground zero. And, I think that principle really applies to almost everything is, just break it down quite simply, even if you don't know the right answer. Like I didn't know how to build a business, but I knew to build a business, I had to be official and legit. So I had to register somewhere. And, you Google it and you find places like LegalZoom and you buy your LLC or you talk to a lawyer. I mean, there are many things that you can Google or YouTube to get your 12 steps. And then it's just a matter of really seeing it through.
That's awesome. Well, this has been great, Zephan. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And I've gained a lot of knowledge through this. So thank you for being so transparent with us. So how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my video website is www.z, M as in Mary, B as in boy, media.com. It's just my initials. But we also have, the free Facebook group is open to any and all videographers. It's just called Videographers Connect. Somewhere around 350 people in there. Would love to invite anyone else to jump in there. All sorts of good stuff. People post when new cameras come out. Some people sell gear. Other people post when they need people for video shoots. So, it's super helpful for a lot of people. But yeah, other than that, reach out to me on Facebook. I've got a pretty unique name, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. And if you Google me, you'll always find me. So yeah, reach out pretty much anywhere on social media.
Awesome, bro. And we'll have links to that in the show notes. And we'll just say goodbye. Thank you again, Zephan.
Thanks for having me.
That was some great stuff there. Wow, I got a lot out of that. Zephan's an awesome guy, totally willing to share everything that's worked for him. And I think there's something in that. We feel like we do get in competition, and Zephan mentioned that. We feel like we're competing, but we're not. We're on the same team. If we help each other do well, it's going to come back around. It may come back around right at that point, or it might be down the road, but things are going to pan out. I just encourage you, next time you have the opportunity to help someone, encourage someone, help connect them with other people, be a connector, help people meet people. Those are awesome things that bless others, that'll help you as well. And you can't lose. You really cannot lose. I also love the idea that Zephan gave of using meetup.com. I talk all the time about networking, and meeting folks, and it's vital. So I'm going to do that myself. I'm going to implement that into what I do. And I know that just meeting people and being a friend, again, cannot lose. So with that, we'll call it an episode. I look forward to hearing from you soon. God bless. Go and grow.
We don't negotiate with terrorists.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, are you insane?